フルカウンター。
Alright boys, welcome back to the rank for us video. AOT is finally back on global, coming out within a few hours now or tomorrow when this video does go live. And the big question right now is, should you be summoning? I'll say it right now to kind of not long out the video, but it is worth summoning if you want to. We're going to go in details about why you'd want to summon and who should be summoning. Spoiler alert if you plan to main humans, but we're going to get that into a second. Before we go through Eren and Levi, I should say the old AOT characters are returning. We're not going to go in detail about them because we kind of already did that, and to be fair, not really worth talking about. If you get them, then sure head, you can go ahead and use them, but they're not really that great, and Mikasa is for PvE, so, you know, have fun, right? But let's start with the banner. So I will say for part 2s, because it is a part 2 banner, this is a very, very good banner. If you want to summon, you're not going to get shafted like how you had other collaboration in the past, right? If you look at the banner right above me right now, you can see that Eren and Levi are rated at 0.5, quite high, you know. Just, I mean, it's not quite high, but it's not your standard 0.25. So for overall, it's 1% for a new character. Well, one of the two, right? It's actually really good. Plus, if you add in the old characters, we're at 0.2, it's a 1.6% chance to get an AOT character out of 3%. If you also look at the banners, the filler, it's not great, but it's very small. But I will say it's very nice. I would say love the fact they've done this. They actually added Crazy Roxy, Blue Roxy, onto the banner, who is a must-have on the human team and also a must-have for human mains. So once again, very generous that they did this. But overall, it's around 2% rate out of 3% to get someone good in the banner, which is more in your favor, which is nice. And you got to remember as well, you can trade in old AOT characters for the newer ones. So I will say, if you do 2 rotations, it's a very good chance, granted it is all RNG, but you could 6-6 either Eren or Levi in 2 rotations, which is only around 1,000 gems because you are getting 5 multis for free. So literally, you could spend 1,000 gems and get Eren 6-6. Like I said, it is all RNG, but I do know when I did my summons for ReZero on a part 2 banner with the exact same rates, I got both Reinhardt and Echidna 6-6, both of them in 1.8k. I'm pretty sure I could 6-6 Echidna or Reinhardt after like 1.5 rotations, because the chance of getting newer characters is actually a lot higher. And also, you know, you can always trade in the old AOT characters, assuming you've already gotten them, and just trade up towards like you never Eren or Levi. So the banner, very, very good. Okay, it starts off with Eren. So the recommended units and the use you have to have here is definitely LR Escanor. If you haven't gotten him, then work on him. He literally is the human team right now, and any human that comes out in the future, you're always going to throw in LR Escanor because he's by far the best support and best DPS for the human race. And also Signature Bond. I think you can get away without using Signature Bond if you do have LR Escanor, and you also have Roxy, for example. But of course, since Bond is a human and one of the better humans, it's always recommended you have the character. And also Crazy Roxy, whether that be for on the team or if you have the association. If you get a 6-6, you're going to be getting extra attack rate stats for humans, which if you put onto Eren would be massively advantaged. So once again, very good that Netmod will put her on the banner, because you could possibly get her 6-6 or a few copies of her on this banner while trying to max out Eren. So massive advantage. But it should be said too that Eren, while he is a human, he's also a giant character. So you can use him on like a team of Diane and Bond, since Bond does buff up Sins. And of course, right next to him is Arthur. Arthur is 100% coming at the end of the year, whether that be for December or for November. My prediction is November. He's going to be coming, and he's going to be human, and the way the game is going and the way they're gearing up to it, Chaos Arthur is 100% going to support the actual human team. So if you plan to get this Eren and you want to actually use him for the future, then start saving for Chaos Arthur, who is going to come out in like, what, 3-4 months now. He's not far away, boys. So definitely, if you get Eren or even Levi, save for him. All right, let's go through his skills. So you can see on screen now what he does, and I've kind of broken it up because it does like 4 different things, but if you split it up, it's very easy to understand. So he increases on beta stats by 10% per human or giant ally on the battlefield. So basically, you're getting maximum 30% base stats. If it is 3-4, you're going to be getting 40%, obviously. But also as well, when Eren alone attacks a character with a buff effect, you're going to get increased damage by 30% per buff. So there's no limit to this, I believe. And this is definitely going towards, obviously, the unknown team. I think Eren was definitely made a counter tier in the unknown team, since they are using a lot of buffs with Roxy, be, you know, tier buffs and self up. Nanashi in a sub slot. So if you ever find Nanashis, you're now going to be getting increased damage, which is yeah, massively important. Also as well, now this could be broken, but with the way the game's going, it's not too crazy, but it is pretty good. So what he does is he increases himself and his allies attack rate stats by 20% when an ally attacks someone who has type advantage. So if you attack onto blue, onto red, you're going to get an extra 20% attack rate stats, which is massive, by the way. But you got to remember that this does not apply towards lighter dark characters. So Signature Bond is not getting type advantage against anyone, so he's not getting the extra 20% attack rate stats. However, the best characters in the game right now are light and dark, so you're never doing type advantage towards them. But like I said, Tyr, for example, is a character that is one of the best in the game right now, if not the best PvP character, and he is red, so Eren's gonna love that. In addition, the character is also off giant race, so you can use him on giant teams in the future. And also to start a turn, you are going to recover 10% maximum HP if a giant ally took damage during that turn, which he is a giant, so he's always going to recover 10% max HP. And also Diane if you want to bring her. Moving on to Eren's skill 1, he's going to inflict crushing. They may change the translation when it comes to obviously global, but essentially what he does is 2 times damage towards debuff characters and also has 2 times critical damage. So if he crits, he's doing a lot of damage. It's kind of like a mini spike, but also a mini weak point mixed into one. It's a pretty good skill where it does crit, so yeah, you want to make sure you crit. The next skill is his Titan form 1. Yes, he does transform into a Titan, which he inflicts damage equal to 3% of attack onto one enemy and also decreases their defense rate stats up to 40%. I think it's 20% on a tier 1, and it does last 2 to 3 turns. It's recently just gotten buff. Honestly, it's a pretty good skill to have. It's just more ways to crit and also a way for him to apply debuffs while his allies doing it, so he can always get that increased damage. He's very similar towards Barn, to where you want to make sure you always apply this skill first and then your first skill. So you essentially rotate between the two. Very, very similar towards Signature Barn. Alright, so his ultimate is a pretty simple one. He's going to increase his critical chance by 100%, but only at 6/6. If it is 1/6, it is only 15%. You do want to get this ultimate dupe tower, but like I said, the rates are in your favor. You can do a few summons and do like 1 or 2 rotations, probably get a few dupes for him near enough max, and that would be very, very good, right? But yeah, the increased crit chance is for 2 turns, by the way. So even if you don't somehow kill with the ultimate, you can then follow up with your actual skill 1, which will do 2 times critical damage. So it's even though you may not kill, you can then follow up with another skill or even another turn, because it does last 2 turns. So it does deal spike damage, which is 2 times critical damage. So if you crit, it's killing. There's no if, what's, or buts about it, right? So yeah, that is Eren, but he's a decent character. But how does he pen the ranking? You can see it on screen now. Although he is ranked pretty low, to be fair, this is my reason. So longevity is very subjective because it's just the way I think the game is going to go. And this is my reason. Right now, he is made to be a human supporter and also a giant supporter. However, giants are very unpredictable. There's never been a giant meta. We don't know what's coming in the future, whether we get a new Diana or a new Matrona. Dubs, basically. It's not a guaranteed future, so in terms of him being a giant team and giant support, we just don't know when that's going to happen. Humans, while he is pretty decent on the human team and okay, you can use him right now, I think he will get better later on when we do get obviously Chaos Alpha. I just think the 3rd slot on the human team is a heavy demand. In the future, 100%, it's going to be Chaos Alpha, Ella Escanor, and then, you know, the 3rd slot can only be one of a few characters, right? And then that 3rd slot has to bring a lot, whether that be Levi with Infect, whether that be Signature Bomb with what he does, or Percival, or Lancelot. There's going to be so many more humans coming out in the future. It's just to try and put an Eren over those characters. He's not really bringing a lot when, you know, Chaos Alpha, probably the best human, isn't really getting much since he's going to be a dark type character. So while I think Eren's still worth summon if you like the character and if you want to use humans, because he is on the banner with Levi, who I think is definitely a must summon for humans, it's I wouldn't go in alone just for Eren. And for PvP, he's okay right now. He's just not great against demons. Pretty good against Tyr, which there are a few of them in meta right now. PvE, probably not the greatest, to be fair, because he is a character that deals damage towards debuff characters, and a lot of PvE bosses can't be debuffed. So my overall ranking for Eren is a 3-star. He's definitely usable. He's not bad. It's just not great. And that's, you know, you can't really use non-great characters in PvP. But I do think if you use Eren, you can definitely still use him. It's just you've got to invest a lot into him. And, well, let's go into Levi. Alright, so for Levi, he's in the same situation as Eren. If you just skip towards Levi, let me just quickly say, of course, the recommendations are Elo, Escanor, Sigurd, Barn, and Crazy Roxy, because those are all human buffers and a character that you definitely need to save for, especially if you get Levi. And this is why I think Levi is going to last the longest and almost be a must summon if you plan to really use Chaos Alpha and take full advantage of him. Unless Chaos Alpha comes out Infect, because Infect is just so important. So I truly do think Levi and kind of go towards Eren, but more important to Levi is definitely a must summon for Chaos Alpha. It's like Infect is so important, and I mean, so recently on the new Chaos mode, Grunt is a bit different, but humans needed Infect, so they all went towards Rudius because it's just timing of grace, bro. Like everyone's life like crazy, everyone's healing like crazy. Infect is just so important. So yeah, in that reason, if you don't have Rudius maxed out, definitely go towards Levi. So Levi is a human buffer and specializes in doing a lot of critical damage, and this is the way the character works. So at the start of the battle, you're going to apply a mark of defense towards yourself, which I believe gives you debuff immunity, by the way. So very good against demons and also Esterosas, but it does only last for 2 turns, and also your pierce rate is increased by 30% per ally human on the battlefield. So you're going to get a 90% pierce rate, which is very, very good, but I believe it only lasts 2 turns, right? Also, before a skill is used, you are going to remove a buff effect of an enemy and also apply critical mark onto enemies whose buff has been removed. And this does last 2 turns. He has got an AoE skill, so if he does 1 AoE against a Demon King, for example, who applies a buff towards all the demons, you're going to buff remove every single buff and also apply the critical mark. He also increases critical damage by 40% per critical mark on the enemy team, but you can only have max 1 per enemy, so you can only max get 120%, which is still quite high, to be fair. And like I said, the mark of defense he does apply to himself at the start of turn is going to give himself 80% critical defense, debuff immunity, and the actual critical mark that you apply towards the enemy team is going to lower their crit resistance by 50%. Okay, so Levi skill 1, very good, but tricky to pull off in a way. So the way he does is he deals special damage, if that's what they're calling it, equal to 40% of attack onto 1 enemy. But what this special effect does is it does double pierce rate, so he was a bit of a pierce unit, but also as well he deals double critical damage only if the actual character has the critical mark debuff. And you get this critical mark debuff, like I mentioned already, through his passive, where if you remove an actual buff effect. His skill 2 is the bread and butter about what makes this guy so good, and honestly what makes him a must summon. Now it's very hard to say that another human is going to get it. Honestly, I can see Chaos Alpha again in the future, but the effect is just so good. If you want to use humans, you love Escanor, and you obviously want to use like humans in the future or Parzival, this is a character you want to get duped out. And the reason why I'm summoning, and to be fair, the reason why I might go 2 rotations and try and get this guy 6/6 is just for that AoE effect. It's so important. His ultimate is, once again, the exact same as Eren, but a little bit different. For 2 turns, he's going to give himself 100% pierce rate. Once again, it's like 50% at 1/6. You want to get this at least 4/6 or higher. And it also deals pierce rate, so he does 3 times pierce rate against enemies on the AoE. So, yeah, Levi is a pretty decent character, but how does he pair in the ranking? So, for longevity, we've given him a 4-star. It's honestly very, very high. Depending on what comes out, he, as a 3rd slot on the human team, may be a must depending on what comes out. But that only depends on if another human gets Infect. Because if Chaos Alpha comes out Infect, then, well, Levi is not going to be usable. But for right now, for what I can say is that humans just need Infect, and Levi is by far a must here. For PvP, we've given him a 4-star. Once again, the Infect, it just can't be understated how important that is. But also, he does do pretty decent against Demon Kings, but Demon Kings are still, or like the Demon team is still way better than humans, so the human team doesn't do too well against it. But once again, I think that will all change when obviously, you know, Chaos Alpha does come out, and then boom, we have the Demon King, but for humans, right? So once again, I just think PvP is still decent right now. You can use him, and you can do somewhat okay against demon teams. PvE, once again, a 2-star rating. Maybe some final boss content, maybe in some other content you can use them, but you got a buff removed to apply his actual critical mark, which a lot of bosses don't have buffs on, and also a lot of bosses can't be debuff immune. So yeah, these AOT characters are not good for PvE. So overall, I've given him a 4-star rating, mainly because Infect can't be understated. It's just very important right now in PvP, but also just the longevity of the character. But yeah, should you summon? I think right now the fact that both Eren and Levi on the banner together, both two decent human characters, is actually pretty good to summon for right now. Plus, there's always possibility of having a giant meta in the future. Who knows? But what I always say is though, Levi is by far probably must summon if you do right now. For what we know right now, we don't know what's coming other than Chaos Alpha and Four Knights, but we don't know what they're gonna have, right? But right now, the Infect is just super important. So if you do use metahumans and you're human main, and that's the team you want to focus on in the future, then I definitely recommend summoning right now. And once again, one rotation, 450 gems, it's not a bad deal to get one character. If you get them early, you can always stop. And if you want to go for some dupes, it's not a bad banner to go for. 1,000 gems, honestly, it's not a lot to get a few dupes for a character. Obviously, RNG, right? But honestly, with the banner and the next festival, either being a go for the Yan or a king, like, if you've just planned to use humans, then honestly, summon right now and just start seeing for Arthur, because that'll be the next human character to come out that we know is guaranteed to be coming, and he's going to make human team probably top tier, and you're probably going to regret not summoning for Levi if you actually plan to use that team. So yeah, boys, thank you for watching. Let me know if you're gonna be summoning. Like I said, I will be summoning because once again, I like AOT characters. I do like the exclusivity of the collab, but also I like humans, and the humans I think I'm gonna invest into. I have got 5/6 Radius, who is basically the third slot Infect for humans, but depending on how lucky I get with Levi, we're gonna try and give him 6/6 because I want to use him for when Arthur comes out. I want to use him for when Percival comes out, but I would say Levi's a bit tricky in terms of how he plays, because he has to remove debuffs. So Rudius may be the go-to, once again, depending on how the meta is. But I still think for future proof, I think Levi is a good character to have. So, but thank you for watching, and yeah.